Tommy here with another fabulous episode of the Rock Room Insider podcast. As you know, I like to start these with a little PSA. And today, I want to let you all know what the number one cause of foodborne illness is. If you think about it, you're probably thinking like chicken or beef or pork. But it's none of those things. The number one cause of foodborne illness is ice. And if you think about that, go to a bar and look how they have the ice in a bin with the scooper there. And you have a bartender that's like handling money, touching dollars and coins, and then they're grabbing that scooper with their dirty money hand and scooping it right into the ice. So all those germ guys on their hands are making their way into that ice, which is making its way into your drink. So maybe contemplate getting a drink without ice. When I was younger, I'd see people get stuff without ice, and I thought they just didn't want ice melting in their drink. And maybe that is why they did it. But now I do it because I don't want to get sick from cootie ice with cooties. So that's something to think about next time you're getting a drink. Maybe I've ruined ice for some of you. So do with that information what you will. We just got home from Awesome Fest in San Diego. The Bigger Empty played a show out there. It was indeed awesome, but most of our traveling party came home with some kind of gnarly sore throat thing, which I have too. Doesn't hurt too bad to talk, fortunately. I think it's because allegedly Soda Bar out there didn't have they ran out of soap in the bathroom, so I'm sure that didn't help the matter. I saw on an Awesome Fest thread on Facebook, a lot of people had sore throats, but it was a super great weekend, 75 degrees every day almost, which here in Chicago it's been like 20 degrees. So I had as much fun sitting around outside at the house we rented, just sitting there in the sun. Had as much fun doing that as I did at the shows. But we did take in a few bands. We saw the band called The Drowns, who were really great. It's kind of like the Clash-inspired type punk rock. It's got Andy and Rev from the band Success. They'll have a brand new EP out sometime this year, and I know they're doing a bunch of touring. I think they're playing some shows with Western Settings and Decent Criminal. So keep an eye out for The Drowns. If they come to a venue near you, I would highly recommend checking them out. In Rock Room News, our latest videos, just this week we had a new one from Sincere Engineer. That one's great. She's doing candle wax from her latest LP that's on Red Scare. And then we had... this Thursday, we released our first video from the Posies, and that was really cool. Like the Posies are one of my all-time favorite bands. I've been into them since the early 1990s. I stole a lot of drum fills from their record Frosting on the Beater. If you listen to the song called Flavor of the Month, especially, and you're familiar with my playing at all, you'll realize I stole probably 75% of the drum fills that guy plays in that song. So it's kind of surreal having the Posies come here and perform in my basement. I was a little nervous for that one, just because they've been really influential band on my music. So that's one of my favorite sessions that we've had. They did the song You Avoid Parties from their first full length. Really cool, kind of sad song. So check out those videos. Just today, I'm talking on Friday here. I don't know what the February 23rd. Today we released a new Stick 'em Up episode as well. That's a drummer show with me and Mustafa from the Brokedowns. You can catch all those videos at youtube.com/live from the rock room. If you don't subscribe there, please go ahead and subscribe there. And also, please subscribe to this podcast and leave comments and all that good stuff. And next week, we've got videos from the Spook School They came through. They were opening for Diet Sig at the Bottom Lounge, and they came through, did a really quick session. I think it was like 40 minutes start to finish. But that was a great, really fun session. I shot it. That one I didn't have Ken here. I just like shot it and did all the audio myself. The video is pretty good. I always like the videos better when Ken shoots on them too. But he's got to make money to pay the bills, so he can't always get here on the weekdays. That's a real fun band from Scotland, kind of like indie punk, indie rock. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Good band. I hear some like Wedding Present and like Buzzcocks influence in their music. And they were really fun, nice group of people. Lots of smiles. They look like they're really having a fun time when they play. Everybody's just smiling. And then we've got next Thursday a brand new video from The Stolen, which will be their new single. It's a song called Overboard. And these guys are really good dudes. They're like in their early 20s. I think the oldest guy was like 22 years old. And they all can play the hell out of their instruments. And they're super tight band. It's probably a little more pop. It's more poppy than most of the bands we have in here, but I enjoy the pop stuff. If you like catchy poppy songs, check that one out too. So for our main subject today, I wanted to talk about what it's like to tell like maybe family members, uncles, cousins, or coworkers what it's like when you tell those people I would consider like normal people, when you tell them that you play in a band. You get all kinds of interesting responses. Because when people, if you're not into like punk rock and this kind of DIY scene, when people think that you're in a band, a lot of different things come to mind for them, I think. One is they instantly think that you're like a cover band. So if you've got like an Uncle Steve and he knows you're in a band, he'd be like, hey, what songs do you play? And you're like, we play our own songs. And, what do you mean? Like, we play our own songs, we write our songs. You don't play Neil Diamond? Nope. No, we play our own songs. And that's like mystifies them that like you write your own songs and play them. What are these songs? I haven't heard these songs. Another thing I think that comes to mind for people is they think if you play in a band that you have lots of money, because somehow they think magically musicians make a shitload of money. So especially earlier, like in the 90s, if you're on like MTV or something, like, oh, you guys are on MTV, you must be rich, right? It's like, no, not so much rich. And the coworkers are really funny. We were sitting out on my stoop a year or so ago talking about this with Kevin, the drummer for The Bigger Empty, and he's an electrician, and a lot of these guys are like Chicago guys. So I think one of his coworkers figured out he was in a band once, and the guy's like, so what do you guys get paid per job? And Kevin's like, I don't know, $50, $100. And the guy's like, per guy? You get $100 per guy? It's like, no, that's for the whole band. And so the guy was like, I wouldn't even show up for that. Geesh. So, they just, it's really funny. The everyday kind of quote unquote normal people, as I call them, they don't quite understand what it's like to be in a band. And it's a very awkward conversation unless you're in like a band, like a Kiss tribute band. Yeah, I was at a doctor visit the other day and a lady was talking to me and was like, do you ever play at such and such place? And I can't remember what suburb. It was some suburb. We'll say it's Berwyn. You ever play at such and such place in the Berwyns? Like, no. Well, what's it like? And she's telling me about the REO Speedwagon cover bands that play there and the Beatles cover bands. And it's just hard to explain. Like, yeah, that's not the type of places that we would play. And I've ended up playing, accidentally played some of those places before, and it always has been not that great. Usually have like lots of bros, like the sports bar type things, and you have bros that want to hear covers. It's kind of different. Anyway, if you play in bands, I'm sure you have your own kind of funny and unique stories. I never know quite how to explain it. I mean, usually if they ask like what we play, I just tell them that we sound like Green Day because that's the closest one. It's like the closest like big band to anything I've done. And then usually if you're like, oh, we sound like Green Day, then they're like, okay. And odds are they don't like Green Day, so they know they don't like your band, and that's the end of that. If you're in a band and you have a funny story about that, put a comment down or something, and maybe you can swing over and we can talk about your story. I like hearing those stories. Especially, the Kevin's electrician friends are the greatest. Just, what do you get paid per job? I love that. That's kind of become like a running bit in the Smoking Popes and the Bigger Empty. Like when we cut up the money at the end of the night. And it's like, we got $1,000. Is that per guy? No, that's per the job. So that's like turned into a running bit with us. Occasionally I'll work that bit. I did that at a show in Iowa, and the crowd seemed really confused. I don't think they even knew it was a Chicago accent. They thought it was like a Wisconsin accent. So maybe I need to get better at the Chicago accent. But yeah, Sherry, if you've got stories, if you're in a band, especially like a punk band, and you have these stories, share them in the comments. Write me an email, mike@livefromtherockroom.com. I love talking about that crap. We can spend hours sitting around telling these stories. So the final thing I wanted to play today, somebody commented on a video. We have a video by a band called Hundredth, and the song is called Youth, or Utes. It's the youth. Somebody commented they wanted to hear the isolated bass track. So I just went into the session. I looked at the isolated bass track. He plays a distorted bass. So it was like kind of nasty sounding to do it just isolated. So what I've done was I just exported the bass and drums together. It's a lot more interesting to listen to that way. This is for one specific YouTube commenter, but if you like to hear just bass and drums playing without the rest of the band, which I think is kind of neat, you don't always get to hear that isolated. And these guys are good players. Drummer is really good, solid bass player. He plays this weird 6-string Fender bass that looks like a guitar. So there's all kinds of comments on this video, like, where's the bass player? And we'll comment, like, he's on the right. And they're like, that's a guitar. Bass player's hiding somewhere. They think the bass track is pumped in. It's the guy on the right side of the screen. He's the one playing the bass. It's a Fender, can't remember what it's called, but it's a Fender 6-string bass that looks like a guitar. But if you want to hear some bass and drums from the band Hundredth, song called Youth, stick around and listen to that. Please leave a comment or write us a review on the Stitchers or the iTunes. Hit up our YouTubes, youtube.com/livefromtherockroom. And we'll talk to you next week, hopefully. Thanks.